there's different sagas in people's careers, right? So you kind of go through these different cycles. The first place I was in the web development world.
There's a lot of funnels that you taught me over the years. And when people look at the charts, or what I call like the Power 100 of what courses are currently popping right now, or what courses, coaches, hybrid offers are popping. And before he created Movable Type AI, a builder, like I said, that lets you create books in 15 minutes, he spent 5 years. And if you ask him, 5 years and counting, making probably a modern day classic in copywriting, seven-figure marketing copy.
Yeah, and it's interesting that book I'd never actually published on Amazon. That's kind of the next phase, which hopefully next year the actual physical copy will be out on the shelves somewhere and in
Ooh,
Amazon.
dude, super cool. So a lot of innovations on that, not only that book, but the book funnel.
Seeing these seven-figure checks come in for clients that I was managing.
How much credit do you give to that book actually being good and like a classic versus the fact that you just hit?
Okay, so you are a ghostwriter who's going to be working with me to help develop and expand upon my book, which is about transitioning from the information business to the intelligence business.
To start, can you tell me about your journey in the information business and what prompted you to shift towards the intelligence business?
Yeah, it's really protecting my fear of, because I want to know all the things all the time. And the bigger our brands get, the less on the front lines I actually am, the more scared that I'm incompetent. All right, dude. Well, I already gave a little bit of intro about you. This is Sean. He's one of my favorite people in the world and a mentor to me, and truly an innovator, not only in our space, but in several different arenas. He's the current CEO and founder of Movable Type AI, which brings basically sentences or your ideas to life as a book in less than 15 minutes. It's pretty neat. Welcome, Sean Vosler.
Nick, dude,
We're going to add
pleasure to be here.
live crowd noise in right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you need a soundboard. You'll get there, man. This is
I will.
episode 1. No. No,
Yeah.
I'm excited, dude. Like I was just out there a week or two ago, and I was thinking about it after I got back. I was like, man, someone I really respect and like to just like Nick, you have the ability to pull ideas out of my head by asking the right questions. So in a podcast setting, that should be fun. But always a pleasure to talk to you.
Dang, now there's a lot of pressure. Let's see if I can pull anything good out of here today. I'll start with a softball though. Walk me through your background in the info space. Who dragged you into this funny corner of the internet, and where did you go from there? Talk to me about the early days.
Sure, man. Yeah. Well, as you know, like there's different sagas in people's careers, right? So you kind of go through these different cycles. The first place I was in the web development world. Like it was like whatever that is. I mean, I'm in the nerdy stuff, started building websites, all this stuff. And it's funny, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but I saw the thing that got me into the info space, the internet marketing world, you might call it, or at least it was called. I don't know if you'd call it that anymore.
I don't know what we call it. I
Yeah.
info space might confuse people.
Yeah, anybody under like 25 isn't going to know what that word means, but that's okay. We'll lean into it. But I saw a picture of Lewis Howes in like an infinity pool, and turns out he had this little info product that is $100. What was it? Linked Influence or something. I don't even know if that is still. I don't think it is around anymore. But anyways, long story short, pursued that avenue down that world. Ended up working for him. TLDR, worked with a bunch of different folks in that space, building out marketing funnels, going all the way down to in the last, what was that, 2018? So 6 years ago or so, got connected with Sam Ovens, Lewis Howe, or not Lewis Howe, Ty Lopez, ran some big affiliate marketing campaigns there, and then eventually wrote my own book on marketing and transitioned from there to going down that avenue of launching my own stuff more directly. And that's where we are today. There's been a little bit of a pivot from the info space into the information generation space, as we will probably explore, but they're actually oddly connected. So that's where we are now in the software land.
They both pursue people's, or like at least tap into people's curiosity and their love of learning, which I think is cool. And now you're just in a whole different world, what I would call like Silicon Valley. I don't know what people call it when you actually get there, but that is what I'd refer to. So you quote unquote got out, and I want to talk about that here in a little bit. But let's go to, because I know there's a lot of funnels that you taught me over the years. And when people look at the charts, or what I call like the Power 100 of what courses are currently popping right now, or what courses, coaches, hybrid offers are popping, people are always like, is it a challenge funnel that they're running? Is it a VSL call funnel? What are the steps? Blah, 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 blah. So I know at one time there's various different things that you've done, and webinars being one of them, but really you have a lot of experience. And I want to key in on that book that I see that's beautiful right there, right above Hormozy's 100 million leads, guys. That is the
These
best
are all
book.
from book funnels, by the way. These,
Yeah,
like most of
all
these.
these. Oh, and that is
Yeah.
what Sean, a lot of people don't know, is that Sean is phenomenal, maybe even the best in the world at book funnels. That book right there is his own. And before he created Movable Type AI, a builder, like I said, that lets you create books in 15 minutes, he spent 5 years. And if you ask him, 5 years and counting, making probably a modern day classic in copywriting, seven-figure marketing copy. Sean, walk me through what was the labor of love in making that book, and then finally, what did you try in order to sell it, and what was finally the point, or the inflection point, where it started snowballing and you got to over 30,000 copies with a funnel?
Yeah, and it's interesting that book I'd never actually published on Amazon. That's kind of the next phase, which hopefully next year the actual physical copy will be out on the shelves somewhere and in
Ooh.
Amazon. Yeah, so but the beauty of launching it the way that I did, which we can talk about, is it allowed me to control everything, right? Like from the traffic way to the upsell and everything in between, own the customer data. That was the objective for that book. Was with Amazon, sometimes the goal isn't always to like make money, right? Like there is plays like that, but like you're not really able to build in a direct upsell like in a funnel scenario there. So this book, the
What
idea with it was to leverage.
if you
What's
put it
that?
on Amazon, if you put it on Amazon, what do they give you as far as pieces of information about your customer?
Yeah, I haven't looked into it for a while, but it seems to be the main thing people complain about is like Amazon. It's not like they let you just pull in the customer name and email and put it in a database and communicate with them. It's a whole thing, and I'm not sure the latest and greatest there. What's
You
possible?
can't add order bumps right into Amazon's
Yeah,
interface.
for sure. Not directly. Yeah, not yet. Anyways, maybe someday.
Mm.
But call it Shopify, whatever. I built my own on. I think it was ClickFunnels at the time. Um, Platform's not terribly important, except that you can control the data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my end goal with this book was like I had a bunch of different goals, but the main thing was like connecting it with an upsell, which for in layman terms is basically just a complementary product that goes along with it, and use that as a model to actually generate revenue. So the book itself, I could lose up to $100 per book from advertising if the upsell did its job, right? So there's that whole ecosystem that comes from it, and then on top of that, like the credibility it adds to your business and you professionally allows you to obviously bring in consulting deals and agency deals, which was another kind of part of that flow. But it broke the seven-figure mark. Ironically, that's in the title, a while back. But the real moneymaker on that was with the upsells. So, but the impetus of it was like I got tired of making clients so much money. Like call it ego. It's fine. I'll admit it was a bit of an ego trip at the start, right? To actually write that book, because I was like seeing these 6 and 7 figure checks come in for clients that I was managing, and they had pretty similar type funnels, like almost always a book either paid or free on the front end, a webinar on the back end that introduced a product anywhere from $200 up to $5,000, right? And I was like, I could do that if I had a book and a product, right? And so that was the kind of the crux of the start. But since then, it's evolved into something much more meaningful than just being upset about not making what I wanted to be making. But it definitely is I'd say the lowest hanging fruit as far as like breaking into the info space and bringing a product to the market. And yeah, my experience with it was great. Allowed me to transition into a lot of different ventures after that.
Well, that's dude, super cool. So a lot of innovations on that, not only that book, but the book funnel. How much credit do you give to that book actually being good and like in a classic versus the fact that you just hit the right headline or hook and it was just good from a front end perspective of people that didn't know you? What led from the
Yeah,
health being
the,
so good?
that's a good question. So books, I mean, you look behind me, this shelf. I read maybe 5% of these books in total. All of them I've read a bit of, I'll just admit. But the goal with most books is to have access to the information in them, right? Like it's not for everybody, but in the nonfiction space, I'm generally not buying it to like read page by page. I want to find specific sets of information in it, and that information should be good. That's kind of the the default, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like for me, the success of the book out the gate, I wouldn't say was so much a like, oh my gosh, this book is so amazing, everybody's recommending it, it's going organically wild, blah blah blah. But and I like think it's really good. However, I think the mechanism, the the big idea behind the book, and who I was actually targeting with it was what made the biggest splash. And then it just the fact that when they got the book, it delivered on what they purchased. That's always a plus, right? Some books don't do that. That should be the lowest bar, is like deliver on what you say it does, at least. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, that mechanism of connecting with the audience I was shooting for, um, was what made it work in that capacity.
Sweet. Well, dude, I know I want to move into movable type because obviously what took you 5 years in order to even just get to that was just a book. That's not even talking like the marketing funnel all the time that went into that. Movable type can obviously drastically speed up the ability for someone to launch a book funnel because the biggest constraint historically for a book funnel is I don't have a book. And writing a book is pretty hard, or I have to pay a lot of money to a ghostwriter. So what have you seen as far as people creating with movable type and actually using it as a revenue generating vehicle or something to kind of accelerate what their core services already are?
Good question. I just noticed all the albums on the back wall there, by the way. This
I
is the
got a
first time I've really gotten a good, I don't know why my ADD's catching my attention here. I love it.
dude. Next time
Uh,
in Colorado, you got to come here. It's because
I know, right?
my wife Steph won't let me do this at our house, so I have to use the office as my playground here.
Bro, I'll demonstrate my like not we've got the Rexy here, the full on like
Yeah, I've always
mini T-Rex,
appreciated this.
it's so
Where do you?
I feel your pain where the home decor does not always
Yeah, yeah.
it's not copacetic with the
Victoria didn't
family.
want that in the living room. My
I had
guess.
it there for a long time. She's like, "Oh, that's nice, but what I think." So to answer your question though, the so it's not to get too like meta on it, but like copywriting to me and persuasion and communication, it's like fundamental to what makes us human, right? It's communication is how we share information. A story is encoded knowledge and experience just handed off to somebody. So I've always, from a high level standpoint, just been really interested in language. And when I was writing the Mark copywriting book, that gave me an avenue to explore that in real depth because I'd been practicing it kind of like if you're a doctor and you're going and doing surgeries, you know how to do it, even though explaining it to another doctor that doesn't have that skill set, it might you might not be able to do that right off the bat. You might need to actually learn how to articulate and teach that well, right? So through the process of writing that book, I actually learned the information better. Also was my avenue for deepening my appreciation for how powerful words can be. And then when you look at AI, which came along, and there's some fun stories about that time period, right on the crux of GPT 3.5. I was getting started when it was still GPT 2,
Mm.
and then 3 comes to life. This is right before Jasper and all those guys, and I've worked with them before. But what it demonstrated to me, and in fact, Nick, I'll give you credit here. You were the first one to show me through Jasper, I think it was, the mechanism of that kind of interactive overlay of the API stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
I never saw it like you earlier. You were actually earlier than me because like GPT-2, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, but it's too technical for me to even realize the benefit of it.
well, the thing, I was trying to figure it out. Like, I didn't quite get it. I didn't know what was possible. I was interacting with the API and I was like, neat. It can like write a paragraph about an elephant or something. Like I was still, I didn't quite get it. But then funny enough with Jasper, which at the time it was not Jarvis, but conversion.ai, I think it was,
Yeah.
um, with Dave and those guys, it was awesome to see what they did with it, and it clicked, right? Like it can interpret language similar to a human and articulate with proper instructions a structured response. And that's really what you're doing as a copywriter when you're like you're talking to a client and they're like, here's my product, here's my audience, and here's context about it. And then you're prompting your brain through the structures you already have in your head to generate an output. And so when AI came along, it was a nice avenue to continue my like depth of interest in that subject of language and articulation and persuasion. Um, and it was a natural pivot for me. So I was like incredibly excited about it. I dropped pretty much everything I was doing, jumped over there. And then the passion for the book writing was still there. And the thing I learned most dramatically during that process of writing that book is that writing isn't necessarily all that difficult, and collecting information it isn't all that difficult necessarily. They might be challenges in themselves, but structuring it in a proper way to deliver the promise of the material to an individual, that was the hard part, especially for me as someone who's kind of like ADHD web of
Mm.
nonsense going all over the place. So how do you linearly structure information, right? It just turns out that AI does that incredibly well, maybe better. I would argue now, into the year 2024, it's better at structuring information than just about any single human on the planet,
Yeah.
given the right context. So that was the progression from the messaging world over to AI, and it's been a wild ride since then for sure.
Yeah. So I know I've been mentioning the value prop of movable type, being you can get to kind of that first draft in 15 minutes. To you, that's not even the coolest thing necessarily that it does, because you don't necessarily look as the book is finished at that point. So for the people that are, and they're like, yeah, that first draft is good enough. What would you kind of warn them, or what would you kind of advise them on of like how to actually use the editor? And once you get to that point, how do you make it your own, as opposed to it feeling like you just use a tool and it spit out something that was cool but it doesn't feel like you?
Yeah. And that's really the challenge with a lot of AI stuff. It's like neat. It generated like a blog post, but it sounds like a robot wrote it. Or maybe it sounds a little bit like me, but I definitely wouldn't like articulate it like that. There's these kind of like common walls that people run into with using this technology. And for a lot of our users, it's like ChatGPT is even foreign. They're just like, what do you mean prompt engineering? Like most of these folks who are coming into our platform, like they've what's really rewarding about it too is like a lot of these people have been holding on to these ideas for years and collecting ideas around them, their book, and but they've never had seen the structure laid out for them. So even though Movable Type does generate a full manuscript as a first draft, like it it a lot of times gives the structure for the individual to dive into the document and refine and expand it to make it their own. But it solves that biggest headache, which is like, what order do I put this information into? Once that's solved, then you're just an editor. Then you're expanding, contracting. That process is a lot more straightforward than building out that structure for sure.
Cool. Question is, AI gets better. Obviously, maybe the quality of drafting and the quality of the book gets better. But where do you see Movable Type going from here? What's its final form that you're most excited about as far as what it could be in the future and fulfill its potential in your eyes?
Yeah, so we're at our like just over our first year mark here, and the first year was really about getting that structure dialed in, right? And figuring out, okay, someone drops in, like the big idea behind my book, the premise of it, thesis, whatever you want to call it, was the idea that there's entrepreneurs out there who have great products, great services, but they're not selling as much as they know they should. They understand why their product is awesome. They understand that their customers need it, yet there's a gap between what they think their potential is and what they're reaching. And the premise of the book is that copywriting fixes that gap, right? So that's in a nutshell what my book is about. Now, from there, it's about structuring the messaging in a way that teaches why that is the case, establishes the problem that they're experiencing effectively so that they believe it, that messaging is the problem, advertising, all the things around copywriting, and then actually teaching the base set of skills and what to do with those as an entrepreneur. So interestingly enough, the audience for my book is not copywriters to learn copywriting better, even though they should be. I branched it out, or even though they will benefit from the book, I branched it out to appeal to entrepreneurs who have a specific problem. All of that stuff is now in the quote unquote algorithm of Movable Type. The structure that it outputs, it pulls together like based on your idea input, those ancillary items, like what problems being solved, who should be the target audience, and then how do we wrap this all in a nice bow to articulate the steps they need to do to solve that problem. So once you have that, then you can go in and infuse your own thoughts and ideas. But to your question, like we're on the edge of releasing a couple new things that have me really excited. The main one being an interview, which basically will be a guided ghostwriting style interview where once you have your kind of idea and core audience designed and whatnot, it'll just talk to you. And
Dude, it was mind-blowing. It was phenomenal. I can't wait for people to see that.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see that side of things come together really well. Maybe at the end we'll do a fun little talk demo of it. But
love that.
Yeah, we got it
here.
We got that on the phone side. But you know what? At the higher level, Nick, if I can call you Nick,
you can call me Nick. Yeah.
Mr. Fisher. Okay, we'll go with that.
Oh.
At the highest level, like the thing that gets me stoked on it is, books are they're just a vehicle for information, right? And with the advent of AI, I mean, your habits change, my habits change. A lot of people on that front curve and even more toward the middle now are starting to use AI daily for just about everything. I mean, today my wife texts me like, I'm trying to come up with some ideas for Ren, who's our 6-year-old, some social study things for him to do with his homeschooling. And I went to ChatGPT and I was like, I have a 6-year-old and we're looking to explore some fun exercises we can do that qualify as social studies exercise, and it sit back.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even know what social studies is, to be fair. Like that.
What should this 6-year-old be learning?
Yeah, I mean, trust me, that's a mixed bag sometimes to use AI on things you don't understand exactly. But
But
the
you
point
stated
is
the
that
problem very clearly, which is the first step.
yeah, yeah. And well, the funny thing is, it's like, okay, so that in the past, I may have gone out and bought a book on social studies education for children, you
Yeah.
know? And it's not that I still wouldn't, but it's not exactly the first thing I'm running to now. However, there is a special place that books represent for delivering real world experience in a way that AI is maybe it'll catch up with someday, but like I don't know about you, but I still like the experience of someone. I still like to be able to tap into the experience of someone else and what their stories, the things that they've run into along the way. That to me is what a really good book does. So as this platform evolves, our real aim is to pull that out of our writers and let Movable Type focus on the structure, and let the author focus on what they actually want to share with the individual reading their books.
Dude, I agree. And I'll take it even a meta layer even further. What is the coolest story that you have heard from customers of how they've used movable type that was completely not your intention going into this, or surprised you by what actually happened with it? Does anything come to
Well,
mind?
yeah, there's it's very fascinating to see how people use the platform because you never can quite anticipate how people are going to try and work with these things, and the fact that the platform itself pretty much like has an inner dialogue, like it will prompt itself and create prompts to prompt itself again, stuff like that. So sometimes you get some really fascinating results. Obviously, we're staying in the nonfiction space, so it's generally like pretty straightforward. However, it can get like I'll give you a short example and then a more profound one.
Cool.
We had someone upload uh, a full prayer that she recorded of herself praying to God for like an hour as
Oh,
the source material for her book. And I was like, I didn't know that it would be, but what the platform ended up doing was pulling out key insights that she shared through that, key concerns, and then it built a structure for this nonfiction narrative that did a very good job of organizing the key themes of her literal prayer, which was is
yeah.
not what a anticipated use case, by the way.
Yeah.
But like
Think
I was
so.
like just a free flow, you know, talking about things she cares about and what she wishes for the world. I'm like, this is awesome, right? And so that there's always these weird edge cases you can't explain. Most people use it for like the more traditional stuff, which is like I have a company that does email deliverability consulting. Let's put together a book on how to optimize your list and, use that as a lead generation front end to, sell my services. That's the more traditional model. But I also had a great conversation with a ghostwriter who uses it with their clients. And her initial feedback was like, this is exactly what I would shoot for as the first draft to work with the customer.
Mm,
Her only complaint was that it was like too easy, right? Didn't feel like she had as much input with it as she'd want to make it feel like it was her book. So that's a big part of why the interview platform is going to be so powerful
I
is
think
that
so.
exact thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, and you guys, you haven't. Sean said maybe he would demo it at the end, but the ability for basically a mature, like experienced ghostwriter to pull stories out of you, I think is a big reason why the most successful books are in nonfiction are most successful. Because what over 50% of the nonfiction bestseller list probably worked with a ghostwriter, whether they were credited or not. And I don't know if they're credited, they're not really a ghostwriter anymore, right? They're a co-author. So,
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
but
And
yeah.
and it's a valid conversation, right? To say how infused should AI be with the authorship process. But my main thing is like, if you want to be a writer, like I enjoy writing, I would say I'm a writer. I write a lot.
I think so too.
Um, but as an author, I'm not too concerned whether it's my writing or a ghostwriter or AI. or otherwise, as long as it captures the idea in a way that helps my end reader. And, from a little bit of an ego standpoint, I'd like it to sound like me, in an ideal world. Like we have a built-in approach to capturing people's tone and styles, but like they're two different things. If you want to be a writer, be a writer. You could be a writer and an author, but you don't have to be a writer to be an author. And like literally the word author just means to create. It's what it, stems from. So that side of the discussion's very interesting, and it's going to be changing over time for sure.
Yeah, could I stop in tonality and style, because that is something that a lot of people struggle with, and they try to, let's call it typecast or whatever you would call method act, essentially AI. A lot of times I would see like method acting like prompts in order to imitate tonality and style. What are the components, or what are the things that you've uncovered that make up someone's tonality and style? Does it consider cadence and like the lexicon, or like what are those components that people miss when they're thinking about, oh, this still doesn't sound like me, even though I said it should be daring and adventurous type of tone?
Yeah, tone and style is fascinating, and specifically with like ChatGPT and Claude as they stand today, they have some, like when you're in the interface chatting with it, they have some overriding like style guides built into them. They are built as an assistant, like that is what they are instructed to be. They're not instructed to be a writer necessarily. They're assigned to do a task. So if you want it to sound like you have to instruct it very specifically. Like I was actually working on a doc today, kind of mapping out. So we have author profiles where it will articulate um a tone and style guide for use in our platform, based on your background and experience, all that fun stuff. But I was today playing around with this notion of like there's different types of tones you might want to strike, based on the type of content. So a more casual tone and style is going to have a different instruction set than a more dramatic or, thought leadership style stuff. So, first thing at the top, like getting it to deciding for yourself what type of cadence you want to bring to the table for the type of writing you want to do with the AI. That's your first step. Like, do you want it to sound like you'd post a Facebook post or a, article for the Atlantic, something like that, right? So that's like the stylization aspect. Then you've got the tone, which again is going to vary based on the end goal, but it's a little more of your personal, how would you call that, like quirks of how you either speak or write.
Yeah.
So getting an understanding of your own approach to things makes a big difference. In something I was playing with today is a means of allowing users to generate a piece of content and what they think they sound like, then they edit it to actually sound like they want it to, and then train the AI on based on the difference between those two, right? And that's right now something really fun to play with, to help articulate that, because most people don't have a tone and style. They think they do, but like they write random emails and blog posts and social media stuff, and that's fine. But a real tone and style is deliberate. It's a mechanism you design over time, and if you don't have one, you can do that before you start writing. You could design it and say, these are my guidelines for myself or for AI in this instance.
That's interesting. So when you say people don't have a tone and style, it's not like they don't have a lexicon or like a vocabulary of like cool words that they use, but more so that they're imitating someone else's style, or they're imitating a cultural style when they go about certain formats. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. So two different things. It's if you write a bunch and it's very deliberate, like you daily are writing with the end game of developing a tone and style, over time you will, through imitation or experience, whatever you want to call it, you will develop when you sit down, this is how, Ernest Hemingway writes like this, right? However, even me, I write a lot, but I wouldn't say I have like the Sean style. Like it's not a very specific, like pulled out of a hat and see it kind of style. So for most
I
people,
think you have good flair, or artistic writing flair.
yeah, and you know, I think another term that should be used more in the tone and style discussion is personality.
That,
So
yep.
yeah, if you can, like, us speaking here, we're gonna have different levels of personality. Maybe not us. We're pretty INTP,
Yeah.
um, but we do, right? So you'll pull into humor sometimes. You pull. It's like that ebb and flow of who you are as a person comes out in personality, and you can articulate that as an instruction set for AI. Takes a little more um, time and energy, but if you do that, if you take the time to kind of figure out how you want to sound in this specific writing and articulate that as an instruction set, you'll get pretty darn good results. But back to that point, that ChatGPT and Claude, they are designed as assistants. Um, it can be difficult to get consistent outputs with tools like that. And
Hmm.
it's why it's nice with Movable Type, obviously we're tapping into these different large language models. There's all kinds of new ones coming along all the time. But we're able to get very consistent results with the same instruction sets because they're not experimenting on those API platforms, which is how we connect to those different tools. Where in ChatGPT they're adjusting that stuff all the time. I'm sure you've experienced that where it's like
Yeah.
one day it's like this worked great, and then 3 days later it's like now it's terrible. Like it can be difficult. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
the lack of consistency of output despite a very specific prompt is, I was gonna say infuriating. It's not infuriating because I still think it's magic, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, part of the so when we generate a book, it'll be between 120, 150 pages out the gate, and to do that efficiently and effectively, where it's like actually understand itself, there's a lot more mechanics than just continually going down a chat and continuing the story. Um, you have to do a lot of, I suppose, meta work, like generating the instructions in the background to continually give it context to what's happening in this chapter versus chapter one. So it's the end game for me to actually make it like practical here is I want to be able to do with this platform what I was doing manually to write this book. That's the end game. And if I can help people along the way with that, with their own uh bringing their own stories to life, like that's that's a major win for me for sure.
Yeah, it's super cool. So really, do you think about it as giving them the gift of, are you are you overcoming, is the problem more it's painful to write a book, and movable type is a tool to reduce that pain, but still the same amount of time needs to go into it? Or is it really a time saver, do you think, for you, and the pain of writing is still there and the fact that you have to edit it?
Oh no, that's a good question. I mean, I'll tell you this much: the biggest pain that I experienced was not knowing what I didn't know, like not understanding
Mm.
how important it is to not just learn how to write well, but also how to structure to inform well. There's people with PhDs on how to educate, right? Like
Yeah.
there is a whole art and science behind how to take information and synthesize it down based on who you're trying to teach and what they need to learn and how they need to learn it. That, structure, algorithm, whatever you want to call it, is known. Like it is known how to communicate to somebody information to teach them that information, right? But if you don't know it well, as you're writing, and anybody who's tried to write a book probably knows this, you might get through a few chapters and feeling pretty good. And then you're like, well, where do I go from here? Crap, did I talk about? Like you lose, for me, it was like I lost a sense of what the bigger picture was because I was working so close to the material. So movable type for most people, I think, serves as that, like it gives them the full structure out the gate. They can change it, they can remove things, they can add things, but like starting from there is such a stronger foothold.
Interesting.
Mm.
That makes sense. So it's really like makes me think that that's maybe where writer's block actually stems from. It's not the idea that you sit down and you don't know what to write. It's almost the question of where do I go from here? And I feel like I'm in the forest and doing circles and I don't know where I've went and where I'm going, kind of thing. I've lost the path entirely.
Well, and every one of these books on this shelf has a different structure, but they all have a similar, most of them have a similar objective, which is to take somebody from where they are to where they want to be. And most authors define that right out the gate. Any good ones do. And in the actual like publishing world where you're getting paid in advance and then you set aside a year, you write the book, they want a very detailed proposal on what your book is going to do and how it's going to do it, right? That's what you're pitching to a publisher. Where most people, it's like, oh, I got an idea how to write a book on sales because I'm good at sales. It's like, okay, what's your unique selling proposition? Like, who are you targeting? What situation are they in? Like, they don't know that they need to define those things beforehand. The beauty of the platform that we've been building is like all that's built into it. So all those mechanisms and more are being added, more frameworks are coming in, but like that's the core thing. If you can get that out of the way, then you can focus on the important or the well, maybe the more fun part, which is actually distilling your unique perspectives into it.
It's interesting. I had two more questions here, but I'm actually gonna pull an Audible. So I was gonna say, where do you think the future of online like book marketing really lies? But I'm actually maybe more interested in where do you think the future of book publishing in general lies? Is Movable Type a net positive for authors who are looking to still get the very limited amount of shelf space at something like a Barnes and Noble? And are publishers rethinking how tools like ChatGPT or movable type.ai affect kind of the book publishing ecosystem at large?
Good question. I love Audible, by the way.
Me too.
That's a bad dad joke. Said you're gonna take an Audible.
I didn't mean that. I didn't mean
I
as a
know.
full meaning. I'm gonna pull
pretty
an
funny. It's funny because like people would assume I don't know what sports are, and no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's interesting. One of the key folks on our board is highly integrated into the publishing industry. He owns a large book distribution platform and a publishing company, and they're in the $2 billion a year range as far as like what they move in product, and product being books. And it was fascinating. We went up and visited the headquarters of this company and seen how the teams develop the books and package them and sell them. And it was interesting because, you think of a book coming out and you're like, a book comes out and it's got a subject that it's covering and it's either going to appeal or it's not going to. They don't look at it like that. That's like a given. The book should have those components. Their big thing they're concerned with is packaging, marketing, and literally just like tapping into that wonderful thing we all love about books, which is like you can hold it and experience it, right? So they make those nice, package collections of books, Lord of the Rings that are all leather bound and stuff, and or redoing. I'm trying to think of good examples, but basically, like when you go to Barnes and Noble, you see these beautiful sets. It's like there's an aesthetic and an experience that comes with books. I do think that's going to become more and more important. Yeah, there you go. Like I wish I had some good examples here. I'm kind of a nonfiction book nerd, but I do love.
I used to fiction a lot, and now it's switched.
Yeah, fiction's a fascinating thing. I stay away from that because that's a whole other discussion. Maybe we'll do a podcast on there, but I do think the publishing world, like as far as Movable Hype is concerned, getting people quicker to the point that they can bring something important into the world that stems from their big ideas, it becomes a mechanism in their business and their life. They may not be interested in moving a couple million books, but 1,000 books that they move is going to maybe bring them 100 hot leads, which turns into 20 incredible clients, right? Like that. Yeah. That's like the lowest or the maybe the less interesting but more practical side of this thing is like if you've got a business, if you've got an agency, if you've got a a consulting company in sports, like whatever it is, a very specific problem you solve that you can put into a simple book form, like this one on my desk, email deliverability, literally, like that's the name of
Yeah.
the book. It's like a book that the title is the problem I'm trying to solve, right? Like this, and guess what? I bet you if I
I
open
love
this
that
up,
cover too. That's one of my favorite cover
yeah,
layouts I've seen in a while.
it's super simple. Hey, however, if you want someone to do this for you, visit this website.
Yeah.
Into the book, right? So like that's the practical side, right? It's like everybody and their mother should have a book that solves a very specific problem for their business if they do any knowledge work, in my opinion. If you are trying to get a job and you can't seem to get the interview, what if you wrote a book about the problem that your position solves and are known for, right? You don't have to sell a million copies. It just has to be good.
You just
So that's the low hanging.
that's
Yeah,
that's a great idea for so many things.
yeah, right. I need to experiment with that one. But at a
Yeah.
higher level, like something that excites me is like with the advent that knowledge and information is becoming valueless, I would say, in the sense that it's incredibly accessible through
Yeah.
AI, through the web, through whatever, YouTube, like information in itself is fairly um non uh non impactful. So you might know one little, like it's pretty rare to write a book where you have a unique idea that only you know and you finally put it in a book and people are like, "Oh my gosh, like look at this. Amazing."
Yeah.
But what a book does is the structure is the value. It gets out all the noise, all the static and pulls together your approach to solving that very specific problem. And if you do that well and it helps people, guess what? When they run into that same problem, they're going to recommend that book to the person, or sorry, if they know someone who runs in that same problem, they're going to recommend that book. So that that's the mid level. The higher level is like, information structure, all that isn't going to matter at all. It's how you position it out to the market. Some marketing, it's going to come the end all be all.
Good. So I still will have a job hopefully in 10 years. That's good to know. Uh,
Maybe.
all right. Or we'll be on universal basic income and hopefully happier. Either one, right? Well, it would be good. So, last question. Where can people go to find out more about Movable Type and what I know you said the demo feature. That's something we could append on too.
Let's try
Where
it.
can people
Let's
go?
try it.
And
We've been
anyone
playing around with
watching
it.
this, I'm going to include into if you guys get a trial of Movable Type AI. I was there. I could say from almost the very beginning with Sean when he had this idea. I think it's a phenomenal product, and if you believe in, if you really don't view yourself as an author, I would give this thing a try. It's really cool.
A writer,
Oh,
a writer.
a
You can
writer.
be you everyone author. No.
Author now, no, author just means creator now. I learned something new here today. But I will throw
Well,
in, I'll put a link on this episode too to just a share funnel of one of the most successful book funnels that I've used. So that way you have the ability to create a book and a funnel to spread it in. If Sean, if you did build it in ClickFunnels and you want to include your own in there, by all means, I'll include two. I just want to set anyone who's watching this either now or in the future up with both the tool itself and the mechanism in order to sell it and position yourself as an authority. So I appreciate having you on.
yeah, dude. And like this stuff is so fascinating in the sense that there's our kind of local level of what's possible with this technology. I'm fortunate I've kind of got in fairly early into it and have been building up momentum behind it. And it's, I'm not an AI expert in this traditional sense of like, data scientist kind of stuff, but the approach to how to use it well is the area that I'm most fascinated in. So as movable type as a tool grows and expands, like it the mechanisms that it uses to accomplish what it's designed to accomplish gets better and better. That's really the exciting part for me. So we'll show this off just a little here. I've been
Yeah.
playing with it today, so I do have to give it some context in the conversation. So we'll do this together.
I will
You
be
ready?
quiet, unlike the first time that I was using it, but I just jumped in. I was like, oh, this is fun.
It's all good. Let me make sure I've got the right deal here.
Um,
All right, so let's see if I can sort this out. What do we want to write a book on, or what is our book on right now? How about growing your information business or something
yeah,
like that?
that would be perfect for me. The
Sure.
future of online marketing in a world
Future of
of,
online marketing.
yeah,
Okay.
the transition from information age to the age of intelligence.
Ooh, okay. All right. So here we go. Okay, so you are a ghostwriter who's going to be working with me to help develop and expand upon my book, which is about um, transitioning from the information business to the intelligence business, which is the concept of the world as it is right now is a world of creating information to sell. However, as we transition into the artificial intelligence age, the whole dynamic is changing. I run a marketing agency called Gexa, and I would like to have you interview me about this book subject matter and pull out thoughtful and insightful approaches or questions, and then provide follow up questions as we continue.
Great, let's dive into this. To start, can you tell me about your journey in the information business and what prompted you to shift towards the intelligence business?
Yeah, so it over the last few years, obviously, like there's a lot of money to be made in selling your information, your insights and courses and through books and things like that. And our agency builds funnels to help people do that. But, looking at the future and what AI holds for us, it's gotten me thinking a lot about how we can better apply that for our customers and for ourselves. We've been experimenting with all kinds of different chatbots and tools to help tap into that new technology. However, we don't want to lose sight of the strategies behind helping people with our businesses.
It's interesting how you've been at the forefront of selling information and are now exploring how AI can shift that paradigm.
Yeah.
Thank you for the compliment.
Keep going. Come on, baby. You can do it. Or not. I think you get the general idea. Oh, I interrupted it. That's why. Hang on. Let's see. You back? It's a great demo.
Yeah, this always happens to me when we do it. What we can do is
Welcome back. So, where would you like to pick up from?
You tell me. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No worries at all. We were talking about your journey in the information business and what inspired your shift towards the intelligence business. What was the defining moment for you?
So you get the idea. I mean, the concept here is the way Movable Type works right now is it obviously gives you that structure, but it generates the content within the book, which in itself it's pretty amazing that you can do that. Like I'm still flabbergasted that that's a possibility. However, like that that's just one step, right? The structure, the information behind it, the processes, the frameworks around the topic, that's exciting to generate on its own. But how do you infuse someone's life experience, their unique approaches, their case studies, things like that? How would a ghostwriter do it? They'd sit down and follow up questions around each chapter. So that being part of the process as we move forward is going to be huge and really change the game of the quality of the book that is generated with movable types. So that has me really excited. And Nick, I've always respected your ability to um, keep an eye on the bigger picture of this industry. I know you've worked with all kinds of fascinating individuals over the years and been able to uh, really know like what it is at the time that's working in the space. And for myself, I'm excited to see where this podcast goes because it's going to be a fun journey down the road of what's working now, as opposed to, for myself, I haven't really been building a lot of new marketing funnels for quite a few years, but I'm excited to see where it heads.
Dude, thank you. Yeah, it's really protecting my fear of, because I want to know all the things all the time. And the bigger our brands get, the less on the front lines I actually am, the more scared that I'm incompetent of so I'm like, I can't lose it. And hopefully this is a forum or an ability for me to at least know what's going on so I can continue to give some level of advice to people. So that's my aim here.
You're always the first one I call when I run into those headaches.
Oh,
And
thank
just
you.
for full transparency, and Nick forgets this, but you are on the board of Movable Type. I should
I am.
just so people know, and obviously you
I
do
have
a
a
lot of
complete conflict of interest, which I didn't want
no.
to disclose until
I'm
now.
sorry.
I,
Yeah, that kind of that's important. No, but the reason I bring that up is like for me, like bringing the right people in to help make this thing incredible is the exciting thing. Like I get to spend all day fine tuning all these, mechanics behind the book itself. But, when I look at marketing, passing the torch of my own expertise off a little bit here, like what I'm able to do with these brands that you work through in your different agencies, I can't keep track of.
yeah,
I
no,
find I find it invaluable because it's you are on the touch on the cutting edge of that kind of thing. But to see that you're still humble and hungry to learn from other folks, that's a pretty rare thing too. I love that.
dude, thank you. Always from you, especially. I actually don't want to learn from everyone, just a certain select people that I trust, of which you are first to come to mind. So, like I said, thank you for the compliments, Sean. This has been super fun. We'll have to do it again. Like, I just enjoy doing this. What does your sign say in the background? I'm just also ADHD. Like you just recognize the albums. I just recognize there's a neon sign back there that says it was all a dream.
I think the big thing that is going to make the difference in the long term is, are you able to tie a story into the larger, quote unquote lore
Yeah.
of the thing, right? I've been studying how and why I watch certain content, specifically podcast stuff, because I
Hmm.
watch it. I don't listen to it. I don't listen on, Apple Podcasts. I go on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah,
bro.
and it's either a 1 minute clip on shorts,
Yep.
or it's a like 8 to 10 minute clip with a specific thing being discussed by a specific person, on a topic I'm interested in and someone
Right.
interested in talking about it, or it's the full Monty, like hour to 5 hour video where it's someone I'm very interested in. Like it has to be like, I don't want to just watch Joe Rogan talk to some crazy, CIA negotiator that I have no idea who he is. I
I
don't
know
like Joe Rogan
exactly
that
the
much.
episode you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I mean, some people love that, but it's not for me. But if there's an 8 minute clip where he's talking to Sam Altman about AI, like yeah, I'm going to be interested in that.
Yeah.
So I
So
think the
it's almost like
future,
mid
yeah,
form. You're finding mid form content even. When people talk about short and long form, they often skip that sort of like 8 minute segment or just a chapter segment of the longer form.
well, and if you think about it as a funnel, like not to go on a whole different tangent, but
Like you
like I
always.
well,
Yeah.
so I go through shorts, and we were talking about this when we were hanging out last time. I
Mhm.
kind of like hate the concept of shorts, but I, in the sense that like maybe ethically, I don't know. I'd hate that it's what it's doing to my neurons. Like I know it's a problem.
Yeah.
However,
And your
the
thumb,
reality is,
the
yeah, and
carpal
my thumb.
tunnel.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Reality is, at least with I'm not a TikToker, Instagram a little bit, but YouTube Shorts, they're all the same idea of whatever. But
Mhm.
like what it does, the short form, you come across somebody in a genre that you like. So I would say, not to get dude broy, but Joe Rogan is a genre of um short, medium, and long form content, right? He has all these kind of people who emulate that style, whether they know it or not. And the short form, you might come across someone new. You see them enough, you're like, okay, I kind of know that person. Then you see their mid form content. Then you're like, okay, I want to see their long form content. And then, okay, maybe I'll go see them in person at an event or something, or a comedy show, or an author book signing. Like it's an ascension model of context. And I do think the more you can do that in your business, the better. Like what's that? Who's the guy? Chris something or other, Modern Wisdom, that
Yeah,
podcast.
Williamson.
Yeah, yeah. And like I had really no idea who he was. I mean, he's huge, like he's top 10 podcaster, but like
Right.
I would just see like his guest in a 30-second to 1 minute clip, and then I got to know him, and then I was like, oh, then I saw more. Is that same model? So I think that honestly, it's something I want to figure out myself. Like, what does that look like to me in a way that I can enjoy making that content?
Ooh,
I'm
that's
curious.
good. I'm gonna add that next to my guest list of things of to like what do you want to learn that you're curious about right now that I can help discover? So I
Mm,
want to solve that exact same problem. Neil Patel has been posting a lot of research of just like the context or the recall of short form versus long form or the amount of touch points needed in order to drive a conversion. But as you know, conversion is dependent on price point and it's dependent on offering and each touch point weight. It's not like, oh, the secret guys. I heard someone say it's now about 7 different touch points on 4 different channels over the course of like 3 weeks before someone will convert. I'm like, well, that's not true. Just like I have enough data that would suggest people have different time horizons for decision, but their context windows needed to make that decision is always dynamic. It's always dependent on the viewer. But yeah, like these new content formats are kind of eroding how we typically consume content. And I do like the idea in theory of instead of it would be nice that if instead of a 40-minute long form video someone needs to consume to make a conversion based decision, you really just need 7 short form reels and that somehow makes up for it over the course of this many X frequency of days. But yeah, I have
so
no
so I
crazy.
and again, I'm sure you've got a hard stop here soon. I'll try to
I
respect
did
that.
4 minutes ago, but you know what? We'll go on.
Let's make this first podcast a banger, man. This is important. We're gonna get short form, mid form, and long form. I promise. If you
Yes,
stick
we will.
around,
Uh-huh.
this is so this could be your format. All right, Nick, is you do your traditional internet marketing style podcast, which is the first 40 minutes, which
Mm-hmm.
we've done. Then you
Yeah.
say, all right, it's over, and we can talk about whatever. And then the person really starts talking about what they're interested in, and that's
Yeah.
probably going to get the most interesting content.
You're probably right. Now we're gonna
Yeah.
take our clothes off.
Yeah, well, yeah, no one wants to see that. But I will say, so I'm looking at this YouTuber who this model he so I'll put it this way. The thing you were describing, I zoned out when you mentioned Neil Patel, touch points, all that. Like that's really interesting, but I think the only way to really make the short form, mid form, long form work is the person making it has to like doing it, because you know how it is. It's like, man, if you're pulling nails out to try to like force yourself to make these videos, and you're like, oh, I set a goal to make one video a day, and
Yeah,
but you're like, it's all about the goal, not the like, you're gonna check out.
it's never
You're
working.
not gonna. It doesn't. How, like, maybe, but usually not. But
Uh,
then so I'm not gonna share my screen because I'm afraid it'll mess things up. But there's this YouTuber called Pirate Software. He's a streamer as well. I think he makes a couple $1 million a month off streaming YouTube and all this stuff. But he started popping up in my shorts, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I'm not really all that interested in video game development or streaming or the stuff he's talking about. But he just turned out to be really interesting and funny, and talking about sometimes pretty profound things in context of life and video games, and sometimes talking about like ferrets. And I'm like, he keeps showing up, and I keep watching it. And then over time, I'm like, this guy's pretty cool. I'm not going to go watch his streams necessarily. I'm not going to, but I know him and I like him. And like, he's got millions and millions of views on all of his stuff. But all he's doing is showing his screen, usually either playing a game or making a game, and
yeah.
talking about life. And he's having a good time doing it. I think that's a big component of this kind of new creative
You didn't
approach.
discover him on Twitch or anything like that. No.
Yeah, yeah, and like, but if he popped up on Twitch and I saw his thing, I'd probably go over and see what's up. But he's got like, I mentioned that word lore before. I think I stole it from him explaining like some stuff. Like I
Or
know
it's
what lore, but
becoming more and more popular. It's invading the lexicon.
right, in a
Replacing
more like practical sense too,
it's
right?
thinking
Videos.
from what I can understand, yeah, it derives from video game culture, but it's almost what I would describe as thinking about your hero's journey, like intentionally.
Yeah, Well,
Right.
and like this guy's lore, so I know way too much about this dude, and I've never watched one of his full videos. I swear, like there's not one YouTube video I've sat and watched him for 10 minutes, but between all of his shorts, I've probably watched like at least 45 minutes of his stuff. But what's funny is like I know he was a developer at Blizzard. He retired because he got sick of the industry, started making his own games. His dad was the guy who worked at Blizzard during World of Warcraft when it first came out.
Ooh.
Um, who the guy on South Park was based on, like all these weird details, but it's all through shorts. And it's not obnoxious. It's not like TikTok-y dancey stuff. It's just his life. And I don't know. I think there's lessons to be learned from people that are doing this new kind of content, but like like it's not a challenge for them per se. Like they enjoy doing it. I think that's
No,
there's a lesson there somewhere.
there is a lesson there. And I've actually seen you do it. You say you're not a streamer, and maybe just not because of the frequency. Because streamers are taking advantage of the fact that of making content, doing something that they would have done anyway throughout their day. It's almost like live stream documentation. And I've watched you
Mhm.
do that in the past. Like you'll just you're like, hey, I'm building this funnel, or I'm writing this chapter in book. Come hang out because I'm doing it anyway. I think that's super interesting and probably not done enough. I remember writing that down as a performance hack, and I've used it a few times of just internally. Like I didn't want to do it externally, but it's like I need to get something done here. All right, I'm gonna invite the team, and I'm like, hey guys, you can pop in and just watch me complete this. Uh,
Please,
if you
please
want.
make me do it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
yeah, and I'm engineering, I would say a new approach to that in my own because I wanted like I love that kind of stuff if I can get it right and then I actually enjoy it. So like I've been mapping out some of that stuff. I don't want to overthink it, but I think a little bit of prep is going to make your life a lot more strategic on the side of thing. But man, dude, I don't want to you give me a hard stop because I'll talk forever on this stuff.
I find that it's looked down upon when you have very high stress and demanding jobs like what we have or like what we tackle in life. And then you come home and video game instead of spend time with the family. It's usually frowned upon.
Yeah, you kind of got to kind of pick your big pillars of time these days, and
Yeah.
like I love video games, but I can't because I'm addicted personality
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well,
But
if you start playing with your son, is your son old enough to play video games yet?
we're getting close. He's in the Minecraft
Okay.
phase, so
Cool. So it could
we're gonna
start to
get
get
there.
fun where you're doing multiplayer with him.
Oh yeah, that's the big plan. Dude, we'll exit on this. I am excited to see where you head with this. I think the format of this is fun. I do think you should look into different segments with the same people. Set us, an afternoon aside where you talk about the main thing they're doing, the main thing you're doing, life stuff. Like that would be really fun, and then you can edit it however you see fit. But you have a lot of unique perspectives on growing a business that I know people find valuable. It's going to probably take a while to get the foothold in it, but once you get it, man, it'll be cool to see it come to life.
Dude, I appreciate those kind words. And if you ever have any ideas for segments, send them over because I was brainstorming that ahead of time. And then I was like, this segment sponsored by, I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen Caleb who does he does his sports interview, like lifestyle podcast. He's like, this is a new segment sponsored by Mamitas. Do you wanna do this segment? And the guest is like, sure. So I imagine doing something like that or going out. This next segment is sponsored by Whitebridge. It's how much information do we know about Sean before he freaks out? Uh,
I like so there's another podcaster I just started listening to because of someone who was on his podcast. But it's cool at the end of his show, he has the person who's on the show position a question to be asked to the next guest without knowing who the next guest is.
I like that.
I thought that was cool. You can't really steal that from him because it's pretty well known.
I could do it
What's
with the
his?
charts though. I could show him, be like, hey Sean, like here are the top 100 info businesses according to us. Like it's the Billboard Hot 100. Which one of these would you like to know more about? And then I have
I
self-selected.
like
And I
it,
could reach out to him and be like, hey, people want you, or
bro.
whatever it is. So maybe I'll do that, and that could be kind of cool. Like I've
Yeah.
always wondered
Yeah.
what they do over at daveramsey.com. I'm like, oh yeah,
It's true.
yeah. But dude, good catching up. We can I look forward to more times in Arizona and staying here this whole next quarter. You can keep coming down, staying.
Yes, sir. I'll be back out soon. Yeah, we'll figure out, the mechanic, but I need and yeah, so to that, dude, I'd love to make more content with you. I do find it like very useful, but I think too, I would like to interview you about some of the stuff you're doing for highlight reels for your stuff too. Like that'd be kind of fun.
I would love that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
try to start doing more of this. And like I said, I think I finally found an interesting format that I like well enough. And if I can get to the point where it's really fun, then I'll just keep doing it. So
There you
that's
go.
the goal. But cool, dude. I will let you know when this is all cut up and whatnot, give you the assets. But thank you.
Gotcha, brother.